Hey guys, welcome back to
Hey
716.
guys, welcome back to 7Sixteen.
We are happy to be here. If
Yes.
this is your first time here, guys, we are a podcast that we talk about controversial topics. We'll get into relationship stuff. We'll also get into, some controversial things in the church.
Yeah.
Sometimes we might step on some
Little
toes.
things here and there, but everything that we do say is based off, we have biblical backing.
Yes.
So we don't just, we do give our opinions too, but we love to dive in straight into what the word has to say.
Right.
So
We always want to make sure that whatever it is we put on this camera is something that can be backed by the Bible.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys are here for, if you are recurring, if you are already subscribed to us, thank you guys so much for your support. We seriously appreciate it. Your love, your feedback, all of that, it really means so much to us. So,
yeah.
And this one, I don't know, I'm really excited for today.
Yes, I actually am too. Before we get into that though,
Okay.
Man, I'm just happy that we get to be here again.
I know.
It is always such a blessing to be here every single time we do a podcast like this. I appreciate everyone that has reached out to us and saying, hey, when are you guys gonna do this?
Get back to
do
your
these
podcast.
videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we're uploading videos right now we're in the process of recording 2. This is the second one, and then when you see this, one will have already posted. But
yes, yeah.
Listen, it was all a process, but we're here. We're doing this.
Listen, God is aligning things the way He needs to, and our intent, we love doing this, and we do it so wholeheartedly, and to be able to talk about topics and go over things that sometimes people don't really want to talk about is interesting, but it's also something we're very passionate about.
Yeah.
So it is a true honor to be here, to have your attention.
Yes, seriously. And if you missed it on the first episode, if you haven't seen it already, you can click that link above. But we did try to, go into the fact that we want to start inviting a lot more people, but make this more on a questionnaire or opinion based. So we're gonna already, today we have a special,
we got something big.
Yes, we have something special that we want to introduce to you guys. I'm actually not going to be a part of this one.
I know, it's so weird. This is the first podcast. Well, you are going to be here, but not fully here.
So what we got going on today is a questionnaire. And I'm not going to be a part of it because you'll find out why. Well, actually, it's already in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
The title, because of the title, it's more based on worship team.
Yeah.
So I'm not a part of the worship team. I wish I could sing, but my voice sounds more like a rooster.
No. He can't. He's quiet about it. But I'm married to him. Remember, I know.
But anyway, I'm not on the worship team. So without further ado.
All right, guys. So without further ado, we have our special guest today. We have EJ, Melissa, and Joelle.
Come on in, guys.
You guys can come on in.
Oh, they locked themselves out.
I got it.
So,
hey, what's up? So, we're super excited for this episode. EJ, Melissa, and Joelle were actually all part of the same church and the worship team. So it is just such an honor, to be able to worship together. And I feel like we've all developed in so many different ways. I feel like I've seen growths from every single one of you guys, and just how God is and has used you before. So yeah, here we have our fellow worship team members. You guys should introduce yourself though.
I'm EJ.
You gotta say something else. He's like, hi, I'm EJ, and
I sing at our church. I'm a main vocalist there.
Hey, let's go.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Melissa.
The
I'm a
transposer.
blonde female. She, her. Do you know how they're doing that?
Oh my God!
Stop. I'm wearing a striped shirt. I'm also on the worship team. So hello.
Hey guys, I am Joelle, and I play the keyboard.
Let's
piano.
go.
Yes.
Okay, but you don't only play the keyboard. You
And
also
I sing. Yes,
Yeah,
I sing.
He's not saying all that. Yes,
Multi-talented.
no, he definitely is.
Thank you, Melissa.
Gotcha.
Also, hopefully you guys can hear Xavier. We're hoping that he can. So he's kind of a part of a conversation, but
Yeah, so what I'm going to be doing is asking all the questions, and they just have to answer it.
yeah. So we're gonna get to that part in a bit, but yeah, it's an honor to have you guys. Thank you also for taking your time
It's awesome to
out of a
be
busy
here.
week,
Yes.
because I'm sure it's like, you know, you're like, okay, I gotta be here on a weekday at the work. Like, I'm kidding. I fed them.
I was-
we
I
are
was
well
off
taken
today,
care
so-
of.
Yes.
We're well fed.
It's an honor. It's an honor to be here. Thank you guys. Really, it really is.
Aw, thanks, guys. So we're gonna start off the way we usually start off all of our podcasts, where we talk about one thing that we're thankful for. And I don't know why, I always forget, like, cause you know I know this is gonna be one of the questions, but I tend to like always forget what I'm thankful for, and I'm like, wait, let's go around. So we're gonna start off with you, and then we're gonna work our way around here, because you know
This is like a fear of mine to always go first.
Get it out of the way.
that's Jesus breaking them chains, bro.
Amen. No, but one thing I'm grateful for that I've realized is my health.
Yes.
My health is so important, so very important, and I've like started getting on track with that, and I'm feeling great.
Yeah, that's
So-
awesome, dude. I know. I feel like when I hear about cases of like, you know, especially within like Spanish community of like diabetes and, you know, high blood pressure and stuff like that, it's like when you're young, you kind of take it for granted. And then I feel like now as I'm getting older, I'm like, oh shoot, like I really gotta keep all of that in mind, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're healthy and you're good.
Yes.
And
We want
we
you
need
around
EJ.
for a really long
Yeah, I know,
time.
right? All right. So what about you? Something. So I always say something that you're thankful for, or something that God has taught you this week.
Okay. Well, I will choose. What I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my car.
Yes.
So, as you guys know, I was in an accident like a couple of weeks ago. You know,
Yeah.
and nothing major happened to me, just some bruising. But I lost my car,
Yeah.
and those 2 weeks of being without a car were just the worst.
I
was
know.
Ubering everywhere, asking for favors, and one thing about me, I don't like asking for help. And I'm working on it, because I know you have to. Sometimes you got to stay humble, but you know, I'm used to doing my thing and being on about my way. So I'm grateful for my car.
Oh, that's great. Wait, so your accident, because I remember you told me, but I don't know why I can't fully remember. It was a total loss on your car, right?
Yeah. The
Dang.
whole left side was just like crushed in.
Yeah, and the thing is that now with like the way the whole car market is going, it's like the worst. But
It
you
is.
know, that means God was just like, no, we gonna give you a new car now.
Yeah. Hey, God has his ways. I'm
Yeah.
here for it. I'm here to receive it.
That's awesome. Mr. Joel, tell us something that you're thankful for, or something that God has taught you this week or last week, either or.
Something I'm grateful for, I think is I finally have a baby sister.
Oh my
my
gosh.
gosh, yes.
Yes. Aw.
After 4 boys. I
Yeah,
have a
for those
little
of you
sister
that
in the
don't
house.
know, Joel was a family of all boys, and now you have a sister.
I have a sister in the mix. So, yeah, I think I'm grateful for that. I think that's a desire that
Yeah.
I really wanted. And now that I have it in my hands, it's like, yes, I got to cherish it
Dude,
now.
you're gonna be so overprotective with her.
gonna be so
yeah, she's gonna be
protected.
spoiled, protected, because there's all these boys on her. Like, no, you
Yeah.
cannot. You know. Yeah, I don't know.
That's how I am. I have 2 younger sisters,
Yeah.
and they're like, I'm very like,
I forget you're the older one.
Yeah, I'm the older one.
Because I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever met them.
no, I don't think so. No.
Right? I
I
only
didn't-
know your brother.
I didn't even know you had 2 sisters. That's
I know.
so
Yeah,
crazy.
I, have
I
2
didn't know
sisters
that.
and a brother. 2 sisters and a brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know your brother, but like, yeah, your sisters. See, I only have an older brother, so I don't understand that concept of like having like a younger sibling. But then again, I think about my younger cousin stuff. Like, yo, that's like my child. I feel, and I'm like, nobody touch her. You better
Yeah.
like, you know.
That's exactly how it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And now she's going to the Navy, which is crazy. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Yeah, she's like out in a month. So I'm like,
Wishing her the best.
I know. Steph, if you're watching this, I love you, girl. Don't leave. No, I'm kidding. No, listen, whoever decides to go off to the military, like that's a whole thing in itself. Like, hats off, literally. And, you know, thank you for your services, because that is not easy, you know, to completely change off your life. So we're going to go now into our portion of our mug shots. So we like to always, you know, drink a little something, something, and change our mugs. But so for today, I have my We actually, you might not be able to tell, I don't know, but we actually just got new cameras, which I'm like super excited about. They're like nice, clean and crisp. We switched over to the Sony fam, so I figured this mug was very what's the word, appropriate, super appropriate. So it's like a lens camera thing, even though I think it has like a letter C, like it's saying Canium. It's almost like it wants to be Canon, but you get it, it's like a cute little mug. So what about you? What mug do you bring?
My mug was imported from El Salvador.
Oof.
And
or China. Or China. No, I'm kidding.
Made in China.
It's made its way around.
It's tiny and little, but it's suitable. I love it. I just got it.
That's your homeland too, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So all my Salvadorians out there.
Hey.
And so and also because it's Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yeah.
So you
Oh my
gotta
God!
represent.
Wow.
You gotta represent.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. You know what? You know what's funny about Joel? I was all like, "Hey, you brought your mug, right?" He's all like, "Oh no, I forgot it. I have an extra mug in the car." Yeah, all right, He's so good at improv. I had to put you on the spot though.
It's okay.
you know, Hispanic Heritage
I had
Month. I know. I had to represent, like, boy. Melissa, what do you have as your mug today?
Okay, well, my mug this is my favorite mug. It's a little like banged up. It has a little.
Oh, that's how you know it's your favorite one.
Yeah.
It's not your favorite one if it's not chipped up.
Yeah, and it just says "Be kind" and it has a little bumblebee.
Oh, be kind.
So I love everything yellow. That's just
Yeah.
my thing. I don't know.
Do
if y'all
you?
know this. I do.
Yellow's your favorite color?
Yeah, I don't really
Oh,
wear
wow.
it, but I like it. It's cute.
Oh.
And it says "Be kind" because in the morning I'm not the nicest person. Okay, this is a nice reminder. Be nice to people.
I have
I
heard.
can relate.
That's funny.
You know, I can relate to. I am not a morning person. And I don't realize that I'm not a morning person. Like, he'll tell me, like, well, I feel like I remember glimpses of moments. It's like I lost my memory and then I wake up and then I have like a little glimpse of like what I said. But there's been times where like he'll wake up because Xavier goes to work, you know, before me. And then he'll wake up. He's like, "Hi, babe. Good morning." And I'm like, "Stop. Leave me alone." Like, and then he's all like, "You're so mean." And then I like leave whatever. Well, he leaves and I'm still sleeping. And then he comes back later. I'm like, "Hi, babe." And then he's all like, "No, I don't want to talk to you no more."
I'm not a morning person.
Yeah, he's not. I'm really
Oh,
not a
wow.
morning person. So maybe I need that mug too. Yeah.
Kind.
Be kind. EJ, what about
right.
you? What you got?
So I have my Batman mug.
Hey.
It's my favorite hero, best hero, undebatable.
Actually, that's true.
No, he's
Mine
not.
is also a little banged up.
Wow.
I've had it
I
for
think
a while.
I think Joel wants to challenge you. He said no, it's not.
Superman.
No.
Actually,
Period.
Batman has everyone's weaknesses. Like
That's
he
true.
knows how to defeat everyone.
Yep,
So
very true.
you know, I'm
It's
just
also so. My thing is, I like Batman because he's the closest to an actual hero. Superman's fake.
oh dang. Wait, what do you mean?
Like he's an actual human being.
Oh,
Like
he doesn't come
surpasses his
from.
limits. Like
Got
he's
it.
not just like, oh, I'm an alien.
Ooh, dang.
That's true because you know what, Superman, he doesn't really have weaknesses. You can't really like do
Well,
anything. to him.
Kryptonite is his
Right, but he
Kryptonite.
never seems to die. Like he's never in actual danger.
Why do you
of
want him to
dying.
die?
It's because you want to know why.
He's just never dead.
You want to know why? Because Batman has to save him.
That's true.
There's no
Oh,
what's it called?
snap.
There's no stakes.
Yeah.
Nothing's at stake with
It's
Superman.
not juicy. It doesn't make a good story. I get it. Listen, if you were to ask EJ more, he'd keep going on and on. I feel like, well, side note, I feel like,
on a DC Marvel tangent.
but also, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like Batman is like the Iron Man equivalent to Marvel, kind
Yeah,
of,
they're
right?
very similar,
because they're both
yeah.
human beings with, like,
Right.
you know,
They're just very intelligent.
yeah. Well, yeah. Let's not
Two
open that
different-
can of
two
worms.
different worlds, though.
Yeah, I know. So do we want to start going in with our questions? Yeah.
So,
I was just gonna say,
give
so
a little background on what the.
yeah, so basically, because we're all in the worship team, I figured it would be really cool to kind of talk about our experiences and, you know, our thoughts, our point of views on different things, because I feel like just in this walk with God, like everyone will always have their own personal experience with God and just their own point of views on things. So I don't know. I thought it'd be really cool to see what you guys each think, to just know your answers and stuff. So we're gonna have Xavier here. He's gonna be asking us questions, and just feel free to jump in.
Gotcha. So for the first question, what does worship mean to you, and what's the importance behind it? Anybody?
Okay, I'll go. I'll go first. I'll bite the bullet.
Ladies first.
I know.
Oh, okay. So the literal word worship means to bow down, right?
Mhm.
And so we can I guess what we do, what we singing, it's a form of worship. You know what I mean? But worship in the actual sense of what worship is to bow down. And everybody, whether we realize it or not, we worship something, right?
Yeah.
Even non-Christians, they worship
Self.
money. Yeah, self.
Mm.
What is it? Fame, sex, whatever it is. You know what I mean? And for us, we've chosen, the God of the Bible.
Yes.
That's who we worship. And I think how we live our lives shows that. You know what I mean? If you're somebody who's after money, you're in your bag, right, as they would say. And so you're doing everything you can to achieve that. And people around you kind of notice that. That person's always hustling, that person's always working, and they're doing what they need to do because that's the desire of their heart. And it's like that with us too. For a Christian, that should reflect in our lives, and I would hope that it does. You know what I mean?
That reminds me of that Bible verse. I mean, my mom used to say it like to us growing up, and it's in Spanish, or in English would be translated, it's like, where your heart is, that is also where your treasure is. So it's so true. Like the more focus you put on something, it's all like, that's where your heart's at, and the positioning of your heart is so important, because especially like in this time that we're living with like social media and everything, and just like everything is about me, it's so we can easily get off the like sidetrack into, glorifying ourselves. Yeah.
Also, like if you have that in mind, like if you realize worship can be anything. You know what I mean? Like the Bible says, like everything you do it as if unto God.
Yeah.
So if you have that in your mindset, literally everything you do can be worship. How you perform at your job, how you treat your spouse, how you speak, you know what I mean? And so that really shapes the way that you live your life. And that's what it means to
100%
worship God.
Yeah. And I feel like, me growing up, I feel like worship for me, because it was all like, oh, it's time to worship, right? For me, was always like just literal singing. And now I'm like, obviously as time has gone by and my relationship with God has also just increased and gotten so much stronger, I'm here like, there is just so much more to worship. I mean, that's one form, right? It's a beautiful thing to be able to sing, and we all here like singing and praising and worshiping God. And that's like obviously one really strong connection that we have and we desire to. But worship is also just like obedience, and I feel like that's for me, I'm like, that's like the first form of worship. It's like your obedience to God, because what other way can you honor God than with your obedience? This is going further than just your singing. It's also how you decide to live your life day to day, the path that you choose to go through, saying no to certain things. Like those are all things that are so pleasing to God. And it's something that it sounds so simple, but it's hard for a lot of us sometimes, So I don't know if you guys have your own definition or want to piggyback off.
I worship for me. If there's one word I could say breakthrough.
Yeah.
Worship for me has been something that, as you said, when growing up, I'll go to church, I'll just say, oh, okay, it's time to sing, and just clap your hands, and that's it, lift your hands up. But as I grew older, it just became more than just that.
Yeah.
It came more than just going to church. It became a lifestyle, and where everywhere I go, just what Melissa was saying, like everything you do as like if you're worshiping God.
Yeah.
And there's been moments in life where like I tell myself, like, God, like I'm just gonna worship through it, even if it hurts, even if like this outcome, it's not what I expected, but I'm gonna do it, And I think worship became such a big part of me. I think year 2020, I'm not trying to get sentimental, guys.
No,
But
listen,
it's
listen,
just-
dude,
it's
talk,
just,
speak your heart out.
I think it has a lot to do with my dad.
Yeah.
Growing up, he always wanted to teach me how to play piano, and I kind of like was like, no,
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want. I was very hard headed, and then
Was? No,
I
I'm
was.
kidding. I'm kidding.
still I am. Sometimes I am. I won't deny.
I'm kidding.
And and growing up, he would always tell me, you gotta do it. And beyond there, you know, my dad became a pastor, and we had the church, and I was there helping him out. And
It's
then
like a responsibility at that
responsibility,
point.
exactly.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I'm going to church because my dad's telling me I have
Exactly.
to go to church. Yeah.
And then from there, COVID came, and he passed away. And I think that really kind of like took a toll on me, where I told God, I was like, God, like, let me understand, like, what's the purpose of all of this?
Yeah.
And the only thing I could just remember, he told me, just worship me. Don't
Yeah.
question me.
Wow.
Worship me. Don't question me. And it was 3 a.m. morning. I still remember, it was raining outside, and he was telling me, worship. Just worship.
Wow.
And I think ever since from that day on, worship has just become a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
And that's why when I always say this, that I might not have like, you know, like the best voice or like the greatest
I'm
way
right
of
there with
singing like
you.
that, but if I worship, I'm gonna do it as how I please
Wholeheartedly.
God. Because
Yeah.
something I learned that my dad told me, and the Bible says, is that God looks for hearts that are ready to worship, that are humble, and that have that integrity with God. And I think
In spirit and in truth.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, worship for me is just everything.
Yeah.
Everything that involves, whether if I'm at work, at school, at home or at church, even if like I'm like doing like something like with my baby brother, that I'm like at Toys R Us or like at Nickelodeon, I'm like worshiping. I'm like, let's worship. So like it means a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, for me, like when I'm in a piano, and
You go in.
I go
Yeah.
ham. Like sometimes, like I jump.
I've seen you. Like he's just there, and I feel like he's just like this, and he's like, and I'm here like, oh, if he didn't have to play, he'd probably just stop playing and
Definitely.
just start going at it, you know?
So yeah,
Wow.
like with that being said, like even and I think that also, worship is just something that for all of us, it's special, because
Yeah.
I think that's an intimacy that you have with God
Yeah.
that nobody else knows. It's
Yeah.
just you and God, you
Yeah.
and Him, and I think that's really beautiful about it, about worship.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I just feel like again, because I was in that same position of like, yeah, I'm in church because my mom's telling me to go to church. I'm reading the Bible with her, and she'd be like, come on, repeat these like verses. And I'm like, the Lord is my shepherd. I don't know what, like, you know, and then it's like, then something like in life kind of just hits you. And I'm like, wow, I'm actually here and I'm worshiping God because I want to, not because I'm being told to. But yeah, I've definitely noticed that like worship is just something that you live and breathe it constantly. So EJ.
So for me, worship's very different for me. Worship was something that gave me a new beginning. And if you know me, like, this is not something that I had experience for.
Yeah.
Like, it's like something I started from scratch.
Yeah.
You know, I had no experience. I've never sang on a stage, never sang in a play, never sang in front of people. And it means a lot to me to be able to worship God, because it's a reminder too of where I came from and where I am now.
Yeah.
And it's so valuable to me, so very valuable to me. Just to touch up on a little bit, I had started going to our church after high school. I think it was like in 2011, end of 2011. And
That's crazy.
I
It's been a while.
didn't really have a purpose, or I didn't feel like I had a purpose. I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I started going to church, it was amazing. You know, it was a great experience, and
It's a
there
new
were a lot of-
encounter. You on
Yeah,
fire. Yeah.
Like I had a lot of people my age that were going to church, so I can relate to others, and I had friends, you know. And I remember one day, like I wanted to worship. I thought it was cool. I thought it was awesome to see, and there were great singers. Melissa was actually one of the singers
Oh, snap,
at that time.
girl.
She was already singing, along with a few others, and I had doubted myself too. Like it was like I don't think I could do that, God, and it just kept reoccurring in my heart and in my mind, like, yo, do it. I was like, I don't know. And I think
Did
it
you
took
always know?
me-
Sorry. I was just
No,
going to
go
say,
ahead, go
did
ahead.
you always know, like, because, okay, obviously we know, let me just tell you, EJ's an amazing singer. Like, and this is just the singing portion, right? Worship portion is a whole different version of you, too. But when you wanted to do this, did you know you were like good at singing, or you were like, I just like to sing?
It was something that my mom was actually like she kind of put on me. She was
Yeah.
like, I don't know why you don't sing. Like you have a nice voice.
Wow.
And I'm like, I do.
Where? Like,
So I was like, you know what? Let me think about it. I prayed on it a lot. And of course, God gave me sign after sign. He's like, do it. And I
like a
felt
big
it in
old
my
sign, like,
heart.
do it.
Yeah, like, do it. But it took me a while, and I started off. I remember our youth pastor at the time had put me to do like the welcome desk, and this is to kind of like break me out of
Yeah.
my shyness.
Mhm.
I get very nervous and stuff, and that was like a big reason as well. It was also me visually looking at how people were,
Yeah.
which by the way is not important.
No.
When it comes to worship, it is not important.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what they sound like.
Yep.
The worship is very different. But
I'm like,
I remember
it's forever. That's my way of clapping. Like,
I started doing that now.
Really?
Everything. I'm like, oh, that's good. That's
Like-
good. But I remember we had like a guest group come to our youth service, and I was doing the desk that day. I did the welcome desk, and there were like 5-6 singers up there,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all different. Like there was like a shorter girl, a taller guy, and a taller girl, and they were all different,
Yeah.
and they sounded amazing.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay. And then in that moment, it's like, look, if I could use them, they're all different. I can use you.
Wow.
And I'm like, dang, God. Okay. So that same year, I asked to be a part of the worship team. And I remember at that time, my pastor was like, well, actually, let me backtrack. When I went to go ask, I was like, I want to do something more. So in that moment, I
You were
was
trying to
still
hint it to
doubting.
him.
Yeah, I was still doubting myself.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can do the ushers, and maybe we could get you into sound. And then it clicked for me where it was like, no. I said it to him just like that. I'm like, no. And he's
Oh,
like,
snap.
No.
yeah, he's like, I was like, I want to worship. He was like, okay, well,
Excuse me.
just to
I
let
know, right?
you
He's
know,
like,
like, yeah, worship's a privilege. And I'm like, okay, Pastor, I understand.
Yeah.
So they had me audition, and I sang, and here I am. Like,
Wow.
I'm going now, and
That's
now
awesome.
Yeah.
No, and I can understand that answer too, because it's like, I think that sometimes people look at like worshipers and then they're like, oh, that's so cool, or like, I want to like
yeah,
look a certain way.
You idolize.
Yeah, and it's
You
not
know?
like, it's not, it really truly
Right.
is not about
Right.
like how you present yourself, like in the, I don't know, just the superficial level,
Right.
and it's like, it's just so much more than that. So sometimes, because I have seen in the past where sometimes people try to join because they're like, oh, I want to look like I'm part of that group. And
Mhm.
it's all like,
And
yeah.
sometimes it's like, you're looking at these people and you're like, wow, they look amazing.
No.
And they're doing worship. They're worshiping for God. Who are you
Mhm.
worshiping?
Exactly.
You know, when you're looking at these people, it's like, who are you worshiping? Are you worshiping because they're some big pop star or huge singer, or are you worshiping because it's for God?
You worshiping because Elevation he is here today, or because they're you know
that's another thing. I feel like worship has become like glamorized.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like the cool thing to do, and I'm like, hold up, none of this was supposed to be cool. Christians are not supposed to be cool. We're supposed to be the outcasts, right? So what's going on here? Like,
yeah, no, it's true, and you know that's kind of like going on to another thing, but it is true. I feel like it's becoming very I don't know, it's mixing in very easily into the secular world, where it's like, oh, because it sounds good, and now it's almost like this there's like a fame going on with just sounding a certain way or looking a certain way, and all the lights and the sound and all of that is great, right? Because we need that, you know, we don't need that. But I think that when we decide to do something for God, we try to do it with excellence, right? But the thing is that sometimes people kind of like misconstrue it, and then they're like, oh, okay, no, we're going to use like, it just starts getting so confused where it's like, yeah, no, it's no longer about, you know, what you're actually doing. It's just the way it looks.
Like they kind of like it's crazy because like sometimes like I feel like they kind of picture it like, let's say, oh, he seems great. He's like living his great life, his best life. And you just never know what that person's going through.
You don't know at all.
Because like when as worshipers that we are, like I feel like sometimes we have to put like that mask on where like, okay, like it's time to worship God.
Like,
let me forget everything.
I'm going through so much. You have no idea, but it is my responsibility, or it is my duty. It is my turn to sing this day at church. So it doesn't matter if I had the worst day at work. Like it's just time to worship God, and it's not always easy.
Yeah, not for nothing. You know? Worship has also become like a relief for me. Yeah. Like when I'm worshiping God, it's like everything is like forgotten and blanked out. It's like, okay, I don't know what happened today, but I just worshipped God, you know, and it felt great.
Yeah, no, there's days where I go home and I may have a long day and I just sit on my piano and I just start worshiping. And that's just like my moment of like, God, I need this intimate moment with you, you know, and that's not just been the only way, you know, there's been days where I'm just all like, God, like I'm just like dropped down to my knees and I'm like, I just need you, you know, and all different forms of worship. But I know in this case, we're talking about like singing, and that has just always been definitely a strong connection. Like how I get just like with God, and I'm like, God, I'm just going to sing with you and sing for you and just do your way, you know?
All right. Also like the most powerful, sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Like the most powerful worship, I would say, is the worship when you're like that, like you guys described, or like what you were just saying, when, you know, you were going through such a difficult time, you know, your heart was broken and you could do nothing else but worship. Yeah. And I know for myself and for a lot of people that worship, and not even people on the worship team, but just ministers, the best moments or the biggest breakthroughs that you'll have is when you worship through pain. Yes. When you just show up with everything and nothing, you know, just yourself, and you're like, God, here I am.
You know why though? I believe it's because it's like I always look at us as cups, right? And when we're so busy with like, oh, you know, it's natural to have dreams here, right? To like, I want to make sure I have this job and this car and this house and stuff like that. But eventually when we start fixating ourselves just on that, your cup is now filling itself. You're filling yourself with things that don't matter. Right. And you're leaving such little room for God to be able to fill it. So when you're at that point where you're at your breakthrough, you have nothing left. So when you're empty, God can now start pouring into you, you know? And it's at that moment where God's like, this is what I've wanted. Like, I've wanted to fill you up for so long, but you were so caught up in your life, you know? And it's definitely happened to me where I've just dropped down and I'm like, God, I can't anymore. Like, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so like this, just like help me. Like, but yeah, like, this is just a joke. Really just any sort of reference? Help me. No, but you know, like and it's such a beautiful thing to see, like God just come through. And there's been moments like, you know, because we have Wednesday services, and there's been times where, like, you know, I've had those overwhelming moments. Then I'm like, God, like, I'm supposed to sing today. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I feel kind of shattered right now. And then you go up, and then it's just like a crazy service or moment of worship. And in my head, I'm like, how did that happen when I feel like I wasn't ready?
You know what though? It's also when you like insert yourself out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's not about you anymore. You're like, man, I don't have anything to give. God is just gonna have to be you. You're just gonna have to do your thing.
And that's where it's supposed to be. You know?
It's crazy how you say that too, because like also like I feel like there's moments like where like let's say like you're singing, but at that moment like it's not even you anymore. It's God, and you hit a note where you're like, oh my God, I hit that note.
I'll never be able to do that again.
you're like, oh man, like I hit that. Like it has happened to me so many times where like we're practicing, and I'm like, oh man,
I can't hit that.
And EJ's witness, he's like, I tell him, I'm like, yo, it's practice. Like I know at the end I'm gonna hit it, like I'm gonna hit the note, and then sometimes I do, and I'm always before we start, I'm like, yo, I'm nervous, and he's passed me in the back. He's like, bro,
that's all of us. Though. And I'm like, we've all gotten like that where we're like. Ooh, but then once we're in there, we're like, God, like we're just here to worship you. All right, wait. I know we're going off on a tangent. What's the next question?
I mean, listen, all right. So here, the next question is: did you guys feel ready when you started? When you first started?
No. So it's funny. It's funny because like I didn't even feel ready in the sense of like singing, right? Because like I love to sing. I don't label myself as a singer because I'm not with these crazy riffs and like all these extra high notes. Like that's not me, but that's also not what I'm doing, you know? So I'm here like at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not a singer, I'm a worshiper, all right? Like I am here to worship God, and God's going to use me whatever way he has to.
Amen.
But singing, that's a whole nother thing, you know? And sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't, you know? But at the end of the day, I know that God's truly looking at my heart and what I'm here to do, you know, and what I'm trying to offer to him. So,
like for me, like for example, so I just started playing piano like I don't know if it's been a year, I think, but when I feel like it has. I think it's been a year. When I started, I'll be totally honest, I would just look at YouTube tutorials because I didn't know what was a chord.
That's me right now.
I didn't know what was a note.
I'm like,
I didn't know nothing, and so of course I would tell God, like, you know, like this is what I have to offer, but I would feel so bad because I'm like, te estoy dando migajas, like I'm giving you crumbs, and I don't want that. So with that being said, like I kind of like push myself. But yeah, definitely when I started, I wasn't prepared at all. Like
they were
nothing.
like, yo, Joel, we need you. You just get in here, period.
Like there was times where I would hit a note and me and my brother would look at each other and he'd be like, yeah. And then I'll hit he's like, what? Like, what is that?
It happens. Yeah. Like, actually, I think I was singing one song once when you were playing.
Oh, I forgot to transpose.
Early on. Bro. I'm here singing, and then it's a different note. I'm like, wait a second. And then I think Xavier's mom was like, I think she forgot how to sing. And I was like, I didn't know what note to sing. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Like, we're just not perfect. And like, we're forever like fine tuning ourselves. But no, you've definitely come a long way. Like, I have seen from the beginning to now.
Yeah, for sure.
On that day, my mom was like, oh, wow. I think Adrian forgot her line.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't know what to say.
I was like doing a co-op.
Did you not see Manny? Manny's mad at Joel.
Yeah, because so it's crazy because this is what happened because we practiced a song as we were gonna do at that service.
Yeah.
And I'm playing, and after we finished the first song, I totally forgot to transpose it.
Oh, and so you did it midway?
Exactly.
Bro,
and mind you,
I would have been like, oh, well, you're going to sing hot today.
That's
like,
what happened. No. So this is what happens. I'm playing, and I'm like, this doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
And then on the MD mic, one of my friends is like, yo, that's not the note. And I'm like, oh, my God. So when it's your part, that's why I was like, well, I'm going to transpose.
So I'm here like, is this the note? Oh, shoot.
That's the thing about being on the worship team. You have to know how to improvise.
You have to improvise all the time and that's one thing I'm like scared of because like so they put me on the schedule for next week to play piano, and I'm like, do it like on a Wednesday service, because I don't know, you know. And I'm thinking about like when we sing, sometimes we're like, oh yeah, whatever, we're gonna sing the chorus now or this, and I'm here like, how am I gonna follow up with that? I'm practicing it like, okay, they're gonna sing the verse once, they're gonna sing the chorus twice, and this, and I'm like, oh yeah, oh well, God, do your way.
Jesus, take the keys.
Jesus, wow. Jesus, take the keys.
Oh my God.
sorry, but yeah, Melissa, did you feel ready?
No. It's funny because I think about, I've been on the worship team for,
Yeah, you have.
I think longer than all of you.
I think you've been the longest out of all of us.
I was like a teenager. I I was 18, 17 when I joined the worship team.
We're like an adult. They were like,
Yeah.
you're ready.
That was a long time ago, right?
First of all.
Anyways,
What you saying?
I'm just playing.
So yeah, I joined when I was like 17, 18, and it's crazy to think back on that because like you said, you felt something in your heart like prompting you to do that, and it was the same for me. And I'm more of like an introverted type of person to myself, like you guys know me. But 17, 18-year-old Melissa was even more like, oh my God, people, oh.
I'm going to say like, because I have seen your growth like tremendously, like from when I first met you to like now. I'm like, she's a whole different person.
I still hold on to that impactful moment.
Oh yes. So,
Do I even know you?
Do you?
No.
Wait. So this is our experience with Melissa. The first time me and Xavier, we were looking for a church. So we sit down, and I don't remember what happened. Like I don't think where I was. I probably went to the bathroom or something. And so he went to go sit. First time in a church. He's all like, okay, I'm gonna sit. And he happens to sit next to Melissa. And apparently, I mean, Melissa just has sometimes the natural, like, mean face. And she's all like, I'm so happy.
I'm so happy to
I'm
be
so
here.
happy to be here. People are like, yo, is she mad? She's all like, no, I'm not. So Xavier sits next to Melissa. And she apparently looks at him. She's like, do I know you? And he's like, no, I don't think so. And she just gets up and walks away.
Oh my God.
Honestly, I don't remember that. Okay, all right.
Oh my
and if
God.
I did, I'm sorry. You know, the Lord has worked in me since that time.
It's just a forever
But
memory
anyway,
he
goes
holds.
back to your
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's funny. No, but yeah, like I don't even know what led me to do that. Well, I know, you know what I mean? What led me to do that, but to think that I actually was like, yeah, I'm gonna go and sing. And
Did they ask you, or you like offered?
no, like they had tryouts, and they hadn't had tryouts in I think years. And for some reason at that point they're like, yeah, we want to do tryouts. And you know, I had been going to church for like maybe like 2-3 years, and I used to love worship. I was just like, oh, I love worship, you know. We have these impactful moments in worship, certain songs that just hit us and they stay with us.
And
I'm
then
like,
bridges kick in.
girl. So
Tell
I was
me
like,
about it.
man, there's something special about worship. I just want to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I tried out, and yeah, I made it. But
Wow.
no, I didn't feel ready, not vocally, not in any way.
Yeah.
But I made it there, and you know.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, no, like I said, I've seen a crazy growth actually with all of you guys. And it's just like from starting off to like, yeah, I'm going to sing to now like, I'm going to worship. And I'm just all like, yes, like that's what I love to see, you know, because it's a beautiful thing to be able to witness it and also be able to experience it, you know?
Yeah, so me? Do I feel ready? I feel like every Sunday I don't feel ready.
Dang.
EJ.
Like I go to sing, I get very, very nervous.
Yeah.
I'm very nervous, and my heart pounds like crazy, and I'm breathing like and I've gotten used to like calming myself down.
Yeah. It's like the natural introvert starts kicking in,
yeah.
like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not with the spirit at that moment.
Yeah, no. But once the lyrics come out, it's like it's all worship. It's all
Yeah,
God.
that's what I mean.
But,
it's
you
your
know,
flesh talking when you're like super nervous. Yeah.
Prior to that, I could not do it. Like, I would forget lyrics on the spot. We would be in the middle of like worshiping, and I would just stop because I forgot the lyrics.
Yeah.
Like, I would get super nervous. Super.
I don't think I've
super
ever
nervous.
noticed that from you.
Yeah, my
I have.
first time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have. You messed up bad.
I still remember, like, it's so vivid in my head. Like, sometimes he'll stop and I'm like, did Mike turn off? I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
dang.
yo.
I just must have
It's
never-
either that or like I don't know how to start the song. Like, I remember one of
When
our
to jump
piano
in.
players.
They're
right?
like, dun,
I was
dun.
yeah.
It's like double dutch. You're
Literally.
like, when do I?
Yeah.
You know?
Like,
We were like getting to like the next part of the song, and I like turn around like, what's the next part of the song?
oh my God. Yeah, I don't
Like,
remember that.
but I'm like
You in the
with my
moment, you're
back
like,
turned-
thank you,
with
God.
my back turned to like the church, and I'm like looking back like, what's the next part? He's like on the piano, like I'm like, no, what are the
Dun,
lyrics?
dun. And you're like, we praise you, God, in this
Oh
moment.
my.
No, it's like I think it was recent. We were singing a song. I think I was in the piano. You guys were playing the song "Conmigo," and he was ministering,
Yeah.
and I loved it. And there was a part I think he was trying to I think read a verse or something on the tablet, and he said, "Hold on." He was looking for it.
Yeah,
He's like,
you know
Yeah.
why? You know why? Because I had in my heart to speak about the song,
Yeah.
and I'm like looking for. I don't know what happened. I don't recall what happened.
Yeah.
But I was like looking. I'm like looking through. Like, okay, I could translate this. Mind you, I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, I know. And we
Like,
in
I'm like,
a
this
we in a
seems
bilingual
simple
church.
enough. I'm like, this seems simple enough. Like, I could translate what I'm trying to say. I look
Yeah.
at it. I'm like, anyways.
Like,
What the Lord is trying to say here
You know, I was
is
trying to say it. Yeah.
yeah,
exactly.
he said, you guys know what I mean. But it's like it was like for me, like I was like so special because like I people might not think, but like that's how I started. Like
Yeah.
literally, my Spanish is horrible.
Really?
I thank God. Like
She's like, I
I
can
got
tell.
I gotten better, but my Spanish is like I talk like if I was gringo.
Yeah.
Like that's how bad it is. And don't even start with my
like
English.
hermanos, Dios le bendiga.
Like hermanos, vamos gozarlos hoy en día la presencia del Señor. That's how bad it is. And sometimes I don't even notice, but it does happen. Sometimes I'm worshiping, and I'm like, do I even hear myself? Like, what is wrong with me? Why do I talk like that? But like, I definitely agree with EJ. Like sometimes there's moments when like I'm about to worship and I'm not prepared. Like, mind you, I practice,
Yeah.
but it's like
It's
your nerves
different.
kicks
It's
in.
so different.
No, not
yeah.
for nothing. That could be like God's way of showing others, like
Yeah.
we're human beings.
Yeah.
Like, we're normal. You know.
I always say that every time
Mhm.
there's like a mess up or something. I'm like, God's keeping us humble.
Mm. Like, you think you up here? I'm gonna humble you real quick.
Simmer down. simmer
Like,
down.
yeah, relax here. Dang. So, what do we have?
The next question is, what intimidated you when you started, and what intimidates you now? So just start with the first one.
Ooh, okay. So, what intimidated me when I started was the ability to not know how to minister, right? Because they would tell me like, Adrian, you did great. Like when we're talking about like vocally, I mean, that's a whole nother thing, right? You just want to make sure you're on key and you're not like, just messing up in that sense. And I have a pretty decent ear with that. Now to be able to do it is a different thing. But so with that, I wasn't ever nervous. It was more of like, because they would tell me like, Adrian, you just have to talk a little bit more. And I'm like, what do you want me to say? Like, and for me it was like, I don't want it to not sound genuine, So I'm like, I don't know what to say. And they were like, no, that sounded great. It was just very like, from going from like a chorus to the bridge, like I would just like look at people like, and it's like in the middle of worship and I'm like, it's not time to sing yet, And so getting to that moment was like super intimidating to me because I'm here like I don't know what to say. I don't think I'm prepared for that. But obviously, like, God has worked in me, and I just realized that at the end of the day, like, you know, that feeling of like, oh my gosh, like I have to sing. Like I still get nervous like that sometimes, but you actually said something to me recently that I think our pastor told you.
Yes.
What was it again?
He goes, let me think real quick.
Because he was like, oh, like when you feel nervous, that's because.
You know what it was?
Yo, that struck me so hard.
I said, I can't remember if he told me or I told him. It was something about being nervous.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh no, I asked him if he was nervous.
Oh, if he ever feels nervous.
He was preaching that day.
Oh,
yeah.
You know?
I remember.
And he goes, nervous? Nervous with excitement. Like I wanna preach because this is for God, but not nervous out of like fear. Because when you're nervous out of fear, you're worried about what other people think instead of actually doing what you're supposed to do for God.
Yeah.
He was saying like when you're nervous out of fear, it's for people and not for God.
So when you told me that, because I think you were leading that day and you were saying how you were feeling nervous and he had just told you that, like that stood with me so deeply because I'm here. It was almost like a reminder to myself of like, why are you doing this? You know? And from that moment on, literally, I have always been like, God, like if there's an inch of me that is doing this to show other people that I can hit a certain note or that I know how to do it exactly like the song is supposed to go, I'm like, first of all, God forgive me, and also like help me stray away from that, because that's at the end of the day, that's not what we're doing. We're not singing, we're worshiping, you know, and we're here to provoke his presence. But if we're so full of ourselves, it's like, how is he supposed to come and, you know, his spirit manifestation, like all of that. So I'm just like, you know, that was before, that was like what I was scared about, right? Of like, you know, I don't know how to do all of this, but it was because, you know, people are hearing me quiet and all of that. And I feel like now the thing that I'm more intimidated about is not being, not having that connection with God, because I was talking to you this other day. Yeah. And so I was getting ready for, we had like this whole One Voice, I want to say performance, like project, or One Voice service, which is like, we have a bunch of different groups in our church that sing on different dates. So on these specific services, like we all sing together. And I remember I was getting ready, and this morning devotional was a man talking about like how prayer life is so important. And in that, he was saying how, like, you know, because prayer is sacrifice, especially when you do it so early in the morning. And it's something that I like want to get to so badly, but it's a sacrifice, right? You have to sacrifice, you know, the times that you're going to sleep at night, because I'm a night owl, and Xavier will tell you I can sleep like 2, 3, 4 in the morning if I wanted to. And I'm trying so hard to like now like 10 p.m. and stuff, because I want to get up early. And the first thing to do is like be able to seek God. But it's difficult because you are literally sacrificing your fleshly desires. And the guy was saying like so many people want fire in the altar, but no sacrifice. And I was just all like, oh, wow. Like that. That's one of these. I was all like, damn, that struck me so hard. And so what I get intimidated about now, or maybe not intimidated, but just scared, or what worries me is that, you know, I'm able to bring that sacrifice so that way that fire in the altar can be like translated, because the life that you live, like it shows, you know, and it shows within your worship. And I just want my worship to be genuine and true, and, you know, for other people to also feel his presence from just genuine worship.
I mean, also to jump off of that too. I mean, for me, I think before was like I was scared, like if I would hit like a wrong note, or like if I would like not like there's been moments where like I didn't practice last week and I practiced the night before, and then it just came out completely wrong. Yeah. And it happens a lot.
I've done it, and I'm here like, oh man, I didn't practice. Yeah. And then I'm like, that's what I get for not practicing.
No, and like, I feel like, and then I'm like, God, I'm so sorry. Like, I feel so bad that I'm giving you this, because I know I could give you way better than this.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the reasons why I was very, like, intimidated. Mm-hmm. Now, it's like, I know what I'm doing, and then people come up to me, they're like, hey, you did a great job, you did a good job, this and that. And my dad always taught me, was like, always say, oh, glory to God.
Yeah.
But sometimes I mean, as a young people, I talk in general, I feel like growing up, when we get compliments like that, like we tend to like see ourselves like, okay, like
Higher.
I'm
here.
good. I'm good
Like
now.
I'm here. And that's one thing I'm very intimidated that I don't want that to reach my head one day. I don't at all, because I know that at the end of the day, it's not me that's playing. It's God who blessed me to be there. Because at the end of the day, like as the Bible said, we were all saved by grace, and because of grace, we are here. So like, I think that's one of the biggest like things that like really intimidated me. And I know for a fact it won't happen, but you never know, because people.
Ten cuidado el que se
Exactly.
crea firme, which is
ay.
careful for those who think that they are firm, that they may not fall.
Yeah.
You know, it happens, and it happens to super famous, you know, Christian pastors, Christian singers. Like, you know, like if you keep your guard down for a second, the devil, floop,
Yeah.
you give them that space to be able to just kind of go in there, you know. But no, I agree.
Yeah, I think when we all start, we're more preoccupied about the performance,
The
aspect,
technicalities.
because there is some, like, although we do worship for God, there is an aspect of performing.
Yeah.
Right. You have to do it well, because there are people that are here. You know, there are people that come into this place. They're heartbroken. They're looking for a breakthrough, and so there's so many things to think about. But I think when you first start, you first think, do I sound good? Am I doing this right? Can I minister?
Yeah.
You know, they're like, say something. And one thing about me personally is I can't fake it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a very upfront person. Like, if I have nothing to say, I'm gonna be like, well, it is what it is. All right. And so when I first started, they're like, Melissa, you gotta say something. I'm like, praise God. Glory to God. God is good.
God is good. Amen.
You know, as you develop your relationship. Yeah, but I mean, as you develop your relationship with God, like you were saying, like that, you know, we were talking about the other Sunday, what you do in private reflects in your worship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as you get deeper into your relationship with God, you're able to give more, because you can't give what you don't have. Right. And so that used to intimidate me before. What intimidates me now is not living to my full potential.
Yes.
Because I feel like sometimes I'm there and I feel the Holy Spirit putting a word, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to say that.
Yeah.
Or it's not going to come out right. Or you know, and now my prayer before I go there is, God, don't let me stand in your way.
Yeah.
You know,
Oof.
just do
That's
your
deep.
thing.
That's really deep.
Going back to what I was saying earlier, I was intimidated to be seen by certain people and look a certain way, and just to go back, you know, that's not important. It's not important at all. I feel like I intimidate myself too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so constantly in my head.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't do it. You're not able to do it. But when God has a purpose for you, he knows what you can do and what you can't do. And I think that's important to pay attention to.
Yeah. I mean, and he also has placed us in this position at this time for a purpose. You know, like, he knew that, you know, I'm going to put EJ up there, and I'm going to open that door for him, even though he's a little quiet, you know, because I want to do something in him.
I feel like when I was telling the pastor, that was like a big thing. He was like, EJ, like, this quiet guy wants to sing. Like,
I never knew he could sing. And then one day I'm here like, EJ can sing. I'm like, dang, he can sing.
all glory to God. All glory to God,
I
bro.
realized there was levels of
Sing and
sing.
sang. He can sing. No, and same thing with like Melissa. That's what I was saying. Like, I've seen her like from very quiet to like moments where like she's ministered, and I'm like, wow. And then with Joelle, I feel like you super surprised me, because I know you were at it's still the same church, but it was at a different location. So I had never actually heard you. And then you went in, and I was all like, dang, Joelle. Like, you know, but it brings me joy that we're at this point where we're like, we just want to please God, you know, and we just want to worship him. And there's been moments where, you know, even like recently, like, I don't know, like a couple Wednesdays ago, I had to lead worship, and I remember it was one of those days where I was like not feeling my best, not feeling super prepared. And I just remembered like when it was time to open, like to get into worship, and I prayed, like I always try to start off with a prayer because for me it's more like I'm personally praying to God, you know? And even though it's like for everyone, I literally take it like I don't even look at people. I look at the exit sign and I'm just all like, it's just me and God right now. So I close my eyes and I just envision myself like in my living room. My piano's right here and I'm just all like, God, like, I don't know what you want to do. Like, you have your way. And so when I'm praying, it's like, it's so genuine of like, God, like, just do what you need to do. And I think from that moment on, it's like nothing else matters. I don't see anyone. I don't hear anyone. And I'm just all like, it's just me and God. That's it.
There was something a friend told me kind of similar to that. It wasn't an exit sign, but it was actually envisioning like, what if God was right in front of you?
Yes.
How would you worship?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, would you be like, no, you're just like, God, like, I love you. Like, you are everything to me.
Right.
I like what EJ said, in regards of like, doesn't matter what the people say or what the people is doing, because at the end of the day, you're just glorifying God.
Yeah.
And it's all about him, and it's all about his presence. And yeah, I'm in lots of words right now because like
I know.
I didn't want to like I didn't want it to get like this. It's like it's
just
just beautiful to know that worship itself, like it's so much things can happen in worship.
Yeah.
You could get healed, a miracle, you could get a blessing, or even vice versa. Something could have happened and this could have had happened, but worship was there and God was there. And I think that's what's beautiful about it.
No, I agree. And I think it's just, I don't know, it's the less you start reflecting yourself, the more God can just be involved in your worship, right? Because a lot of times it's like, if you're just so worried on yourself, and it happens. Sometimes you're like, oh, this is a great song. Like, I want to make sure I hit it like the person that originally sings it. But, you know, because they're like, if I don't do it right, the song's crap. Like
something I've put in myself is that I'm never going to sound like anybody.
Yeah.
I am made to be me.
Yes.
And to have my own unique sound.
Yeah.
You know, so I've tried to like cut that out.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, oh, I want to sound like.
Because then you try to live up to their potential, and it's like
and
you have your own potential.
You don't sound like them, so you're like, no, I sound terrible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like everybody has a unique voice, unique sound, whether it's not just voices, but pianos and drummers and bass.
That's literally all part of it, you know, because like I said, like I'm not like no pro piano player, but there's been just so many times where I'm there and I've been bawling my eyes out, and I'm just all like, wow, God, like you are just so good, and I just feel your presence, and that's like with imperfections. That's with me not knowing what the next chord is. That's with me not knowing like, oh man, like I'm doing all these pauses because God's not looking for perfection. He's just looking for the willing heart.
That's right.
You know?
Have you ever tried like worshiping without music? Like you just do it yourself. No notes.
Not like in a moment where I'm just like that, but just
like you'll be surprised. Like I've done this like when I'm showering, I'll be like, you know what? I'm not gonna play Elevation. I'm not gonna play Maverick City. I'm not gonna play any of these people that I know. I'm just gonna turn the phone off,
worship on my own.
and I'm just gonna worship God. And if the lyrics come, they come out.
Wow.
You know, and sometimes you'll be surprised. Like you come out with lyrics that are like brand new.
Yeah.
So when you drop in that,
that album, bro, like,
so what you're saying is,
so what you're saying is God is giving you lyrics.
It's happened. It has happened.
Dude, you gotta write that down, and then little by little, like
that's
hum it out.
That's something that I gotta start doing.
That's amazing.
The thing is, I've tried to record myself, and I'm like, no, like I know if I record myself, then I'm gonna be like, oh, I want to do this, and I want to sound like this. Yeah, I'm all in my head. So I kind of like try to cut it out.
I mean, that's not completely bad, because like I said, like there is the thing where it's all like, God, I wanna make sure I bring you my best. So if you want to add in things and you record yourself, you're like
I have recorded. I have like some recordings.
Yeah.
But it's not a full song.
It's getting there. 2023, we waiting.
We'll see.
The next question is, how can we give our best worship?
Oh, I feel like we kind of touched into that a little bit.
Worship in spirit and in truth.
Worshiping in spirit and in truth.
I
Yeah.
think, listen, authentic worship is the best.
It's the
worship.
best
Listen,
worship.
Listen.
Yes.
And it's funny because when I think of authentic worship and I look at the Bible, I think of Psalms. And if you if you read the book of Psalms, the other day I was thinking about it. I'm like, this is kind of hilarious because, you know, you have David, who was a man after God's heart, right? God was pleased with David. And if you look at the songs that he wrote, one chapter would be like, I am in despair. I am in darkness. My enemies want to cut my head off. And then the next chapter is like, the Lord is my fortress and my salvation.
I shall not want.
For real. And you're like, what the, bro? Like, what's going on here? But I think that's such a good, it's like example of how we should be with it, because these are songs, which is wild that he would just sing about these things. And you look at Psalm 91, where he slept with Bathsheba, and then he sent her husband to be killed, and then he's writing this psalm like, Lord, forgive me, Lord,
it's
clean my
genuine.
heart.
It's so genuine.
He's like, Lord, clean my heart. In other words, I don't have a clean heart. Clean it. And then he's like, don't take your presence away from me. So I feel like that's such a great example of what authentic worship is.
You know what I mean? 100%.
That truth part is very important.
Yeah,
very, very
it's so important, and I feel like you notice it when it's not. I feel like it's noticeable when someone's trying really hard.
Oh yes.
Versus like you're not being genuine. Like you're. It almost sounds like you're doing it for yourself.
Like you're doing it out of obligation.
Out of performance, to look good. Like it's just.
Or sometimes because sometimes or like when you force. Like you want to force the spirit to provoke, and like you don't see nobody move. You just see, exactly. like you see people like this, like not raising their hands or not singing. And you're like, Espíritu de Dios, like, and you go at it, and you're like what the heck is what's going on?
But also, I have noticed with this, like, so for example, because you know our church, we have like the double service, and our second service. Our church has the double service.
Oh, I heard something else. I heard the double service. I'm like,
where? Tell me where.
Sorry.
No, double, two, dos. We have the two services. So I know that our second service, I feel like people are a little bit quieter. They're a little, but I remember one time it was my turn to lead on a Sunday service, and I remember you know, I'm being genuine, right? And I don't really ever look at people because I don't want that to affect me and to be like, why didn't they raise their hands? Why didn't this? Because a lot of times people are they're internalizing it, you know, and they're not ones to raise their hand. They're not ones to go like that. And I remember, like, I've already seen that. I don't know if it's like a lot of times that they're more newcomers that come to the second service or whatever the case is. It doesn't matter, because honestly, it's not my business, like their relationship with God, like how they choose to worship God. But I remember once, you know, I was worshiping, and, you know, it got to my head a little bit where I was all like, oh, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's something I'm saying or not saying. But I was all like, God, I'm going to worship you. And I just want to be, you know, genuine to my worship. And then I remember I opened my eyes and I see someone like on the second floor part, and he's just like breaking down. And I'm here like, wow, like God is allowing me to be used to reach to this one person. And that's all that matters. It doesn't matter that it's a whole group, whether it's a full service or not a full service. I'm like, God's speaking to this man right now. And, you know, and it's just such a beautiful thing to see where I'm like, wow, like, why do we get caught up in like the numbers and this? And it's hard. It's obviously our flesh that kicks in and stuff, but I'm just all like, wow, like God, you will do what you need to do to reach that one person.
It's like crazy you say that, because like I even like what you said, like when you saw that one person, I always like picture it, or like how the Bible explains it, like when you accept Christ, even if it's one or two, there's like joy in heaven. Yeah. And I always say that I'm like even if it's just one person, or even if it's just a kid just crying his eyes out, worshiping God, like I tend to do the same thing too. I don't tend to look at people, even though I always have my eyes wide open, but like I tend to not always look, because I feel like that becomes a very, very big distraction.
Yes,
very
it does.
huge.
Like,
because
I don't
then-
even look at Xavier, and sometimes he's like right there, and I'm like, I'm not looking at him. Like, I'm just gonna praise God and do my own thing. Because for me, I get distracted, and I'm just like, I don't want that, you know. But yeah, it's. What was the question again? I'm like, wait, we're going off on a tangent here.
Well, I think you guys answered the question, but definitely went off on a tangent.
Yeah.
So the next question is, as worship leaders, what are things you need to be careful? What are things you guys need to be careful for?
Yeah, so definitely. Well, I don't want to be. I feel like I've been answering first. I'm gonna let one of y'all go.
I'll go.
Oof.
So
Alyssa got something.
Well,
to
she
say.
got something spiced.
Because she was all like, "I'll go," and she raised her eyebrow like.
I think this is the question she was waiting for.
I know. She was like, "I was waiting for this."
I honestly, I was thinking about this when I was driving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think and this is not just for worship leaders, but for anybody in church, anybody who ministers or has some sort of part in church, I think one of the things to be careful of is not mistaking your service in church with your relationship with God. Because there are people that are serving in multiple ministries, children's ministries, women's ministry, usher ministry, yo, que sé yo. And they're just, they live in church, man. And some people do this because they want to distract themselves.
Oh.
So they pick up something to do and they're like, well, this is my relationship with God. I'm pleasing God.
Oof.
And it's like, no, you're not.
That's
No,
deep.
what's happening when you're going at home?
You have no intimacy with God.
Yeah.
You know, and it goes back to what we were talking about on Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, a relationship with God takes effort. It takes
Yes.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional
That's
about
right.
seeking God. It's not just gonna poof
Yeah.
happen like, oh. So really taking the time to seek God, to really get into his presence is so important. And if you
Yeah.
don't do that, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Mhm.
You know, because I know because I've been one of these people in church who sits there like, is this it?
Yeah.
Is this it? Is this service? This four walls? Is this it? And it's not.
Yeah.
You know, God has so much more for us in his presence, and we miss out on it. He has so much that he wants to reveal and show us. He wants to show us what he wants for our lives, and we're just like, nah, I'm
But
good.
we're like, yeah, but we want you to spoon feed us, and we don't want to do the work for it. So like, whenever you have God, whenever you decide to bring that fire preacher or this, that's what I'm waiting for. You know, and it's not like that, you know. But it is very true how like people will mistaken like, I'm doing this for God, I'm in this ministry, I'm in this. It's like, okay, but are you seeking God on your alone time when no one's actually looking? Are you going to that secret place? Are you like, what's that looking like? Because that's where the relationship is truly built on. It's not where everyone could see. It's being able to go to that secret place and like, God, this is me and you time.
Yeah, and like, where are you gonna draw from?
Yeah, like
where are you
you're
giving your
dry,
service
you're
from?
dry.
You know, and it reminds me of this verse in the Bible. It's probably the scariest verse in the Bible, and we've all heard it. And it's the verse where, you know, it says, and they prophesied. And they healed, and they went out preaching, and they came before God, and God said, "Depart from me, I don't know you." And
Crazy,
this is talking
right?
about people who serve, people,
Yes.
mira, gente que sana, que profetiza,
That's crazy.
and it's like, what? How is
Yeah.
it that God is saying, I don't know you? I don't know you. You didn't spend time with me. You didn't seek
Yeah.
me in private.
Yeah.
Who are you? I don't know you.
Is because people just want the ministry life. That's it. And it's so far from that. One, to be able to be in ministry with God, like that is such a huge responsibility on its
is.
own.
That's true.
But apart from that, like, yeah, that doesn't define how strong you are with God.
no.
And you know what's the craziest thing about all of that is that person, let's just say there is, I don't know, someone that's in ministry, could be someone who's a pastor or whatever the case is, because they're so busy and focused on like, I got to make sure our services are on time. I got to make sure I have my preaching, like, you know, like what I have to say and like all of that. And even though they might not have that intimacy, like how you were saying, people who were prophesizing and stuff like that, God will still use that person to
Yeah.
reach out to someone
Listen,
else.
The gifts of God, he
Yeah.
doesn't take them back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's why you have even people in the world that have God's gifts,
Yeah.
but they're not using them.
I know.
For the Lord, which is
Crazy.
wild.
I know. Have you ever seen
Yeah.
it?
Like,
And I'm
you're
just
meant
all
to
like,
be a worshiper. What
I
are you
know. I'm
doing?
like,
Yeah.
you could do so much with what you have for the
gosh.
kingdom of God. But yeah, that's the part that's always so like mind-boggling to me, where it's all like, wow, God, even someone who isn't truly seeking you, who isn't truly like living with you, you will still use whatever they're giving to touch someone else. And that's how much God loves us.
Yeah, he moves in the midst of his people. He knows that there are people in need that need to receive something, and God will operate through that, which is wild.
Like, I remember a couple of years ago where I think it was like Justin Bieber that was doing like, this is like early on. I think he was doing like that Corey Asbury song,
Reckless Love.
Yes, he was doing Reckless Love, and there was so much backlash, right? Where it was like, oh, how is he doing that if he's living this whole super secular life? And I can understand that, right, from my flesh, where I'm just all like, yeah, like, you know, that's such a hypocrite thing. I'm like, but even with that, God is allowing to use that moment, and someone can get saved from that, you know? And I'm just like, because now they're like, oh, who is this Jesus person? Who is this, that? So it's like, man, like, it is not up to us what God decides, what and how and when God decides to use something.
That's true.
So true.
You know? So I don't know if you guys want to add on.
Yeah, I wanted to add, we have to be careful with our standing, right, as a worshiper, because just as easily as you're there, you can fall off.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, the enemy tempts us in many different ways, and not only does that affect you, but that also affects everyone else that sees you, you know, that sees the person that's worshiping God, you know, and then they find out, it's like, oh, this person was at a club yesterday and now they're here on a Sunday, like worshiping God. It's like, you got to be careful, like, what you're doing.
I think especially in the position that we're in, you know, because God will judge us one day, you know, on how we decided to take our role. Especially, there's a Bible verse that talks about like teachers, like how,
oh, that's the toughest job.
That's like the toughest job, because like God's gonna like judge you twice, like really look into like what you have done, and I don't know, it's just nothing to joke with, you know. And I think the question, could you repeat it one more time?
What advice can you give to new people joining the worship team?
What advice? I mean, that's a tough one, but I think as a perspective, as like new people joining, I mean, of course, I'll tell them, hey, welcome. Like, you know, we're glad that you're going to be part of this team. We're glad that, you know, we're going to be worshiping together, encountering God. But I think one main thing that I would definitely tell them is, like, prepare yourself to sacrifice yourself a lot.
Yeah.
I think sacrifice has to do a lot with worship, because sometimes you have to sacrifice your job, sometimes your school, sometimes even your days or hours. Like, for example, like for the One Voice thing, we all sacrifice a Thursday.
That was a tough day for me, let me tell you.
And then we had to sacrifice 1 hour of sleep, or maybe 30 minutes of sleep. So it's like, I would tell them, like, hey, like, it's amazing that you're joining, but prepare your heart to sacrifice what God has in store for you. Because sometimes we tell ourselves, hey, like, I'm part of the worship team, but we don't do the sacrifices that maybe God wants us to do. And I think that's very important when you tell somebody, sacrifice, prepare yourself, be ready, because one of these days God could just use you. And I think that's very, very important.
Yeah. No, and sacrificing of time is a big one, because it's not always just like, for example, the practices that we're doing at church, but it's also like at home, and also like just like how we were saying, like your intimate life with God will translate up there. And if you're not like in tune, if you're not like sensitive to like God's words, like it just, again, it just shows, it looks like a performance, and that's the last thing you want to do, you know. If you, for anyone, this could be our church, a different church, whatever the case is, but if you decide like I want to join the worship team, don't go with the mentality, or how do I want to word this? If you decide that you want to join the worship team because it looks cool, do a little bit more start digging deeper, because it's really so much more than just the appearance. And I know I feel like we've talked a little bit about like what it is too, but appearance is the last thing, you know. And you want to allow yourself for God to use you, but you also have to put in that sacrifice timing with yourself for a service, because at the end of the day, it's also a ministry, you know.
And also, it's like sometimes, like, even like I might say this, like, I myself do it sometimes. I think it's like, if like restraining yourself, letting the Holy Spirit flow.
Oh yeah,
And
that
I
one's
think, and
that
it
one's
has,
rough sometimes.
It has happened where like the Holy Spirit is like telling me, and I restrain myself, and then that's where I'm like, "Ugh, why did I restrain myself to do it? Because then that kind of like cuts that connection that you had with whether like if there was like a build up or like the Spirit was moving, and so like that's another thing I would definitely tell the person that starts like, hey,
it's
like
like you were estaba fluyendo,
Exactly,
and you just
right.
like you could have kept going, but you
Exactly.
cut it short.
We're just so afraid of making mistakes, man.
I
We're
know
just
it's so
afraid.
tough.
And so I would just add on to that. Don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah,
There is room for error, and that's just in your relationship with God in general. There is room for error. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna get cast out just because you mess up. It's kind of necessary for you to mess up.
yeah.
You
You
know
need
what
to
I mean?
mess up in order for you to figure out like, okay, what did I do wrong this time? Like, was I just too in my head? Was I this? And you know, if you just want to keep it at that perfect level, it's like there's just not going to be any room for growth.
Also, obedience is so important when you worship too. Like sometimes we don't want to like sing the songs that we have on our list, but it's like do it anyways. Practice. Make sure you're not doing it for you.
Yeah.
You know, do it for God.
I think that's the number one thing. Just make sure that if you are joining a worship team, that it is not about you.
Yes.
I repeat, it is not about you.
And
it is
for
not
yourself.
even about how good you can sing, because that's the last thing.
Right.
God is looking for that obedience part.
That's right.
And also, you know, sometimes you don't want to. And when you don't want to, you should.
Yeah.
You got to remember
Yeah, that's true.
you got to remember that the enemy is here to seek, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
And that purpose that God is building up in you is it needs to be nurtured, and it needs to be consistently
That's right.
Yeah.
built.
Yeah.
You have to protect that.
Sorry, I was just going to say, you know, from this Sunday, because we were talking about it right after the service. Because again, we have a double service, 2 services. So we had this one voice service. I don't know why I keep saying one voice project like in my head. I guess it is kind of, but
It's a whole elaborate thing.
it's a one voice performance service type of thing. And that last song, Alleluia, like it was like it's just such a beautiful song, right? And we were talking about how like in the first service, like, you know, we made sure like we memorized everything, like what parts every group had to do, so the harmony sounded right. And I feel like for that second service, like we all just like broke in. And I think it was because we got out of our heads of like, you know, we already know these parts because we're already singing it. At this point, it is the second service. So this is our second time we're doing all of these songs. And usually by that second service, you're just like, I know what I had to do. I know what it is. Now it's just like free worship almost. Yeah. And that's the point where it was like, I just feel like God just came down and it was just totally different.
That's that genuinity.
Yes. And that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
And why? Because like we weren't worried about how we were going to sound anymore. We weren't, I mean, there's probably a part of us where it's all like, okay, I just got to remember that I have to say this part.
You know, we practiced how to end that song a certain way.
And it went different.
We were ending it, and I felt in my spirit. I look at Cassandra, and I like tap her arm. I'm like, hallelujah, hallelujah.
Yeah, did you? I didn't even know. At one point, I was just like,
everybody was like worshiping. I was like, no, it's not gonna end this way this time. So we changed it, and it was amazing.
Yeah,
you know? It's
it was
amazing
just
to worship God truthfully.
Yeah,
like
not
also
just
like oh, my bad. Like
no.
Also like jumping off of that too, because like I remember Thursday we were practicing for I think Temprano Yo Te Buscaré.
Yeah.
And I was Melissa's witness. I was so mad at myself because I'm like, I practice it, of course, in a certain way that I did, and I just couldn't find a note.
Oh yeah,
and Melissa saw me. I was so mad because I'm like, yo, like I was frustrated because I'm like, oh my God, like I'm trying to make it perfect as possible. And of course, as you said, like Sunday on the second service,
it didn't even matter.
It didn't even matter at that point. At that point, I was like, it's like so, like it's like I always like envision that, like, yo, like, you know, you frustrate yourself so much to make it perfect,
and God doesn't even care.
God doesn't care. Like he just wants a heart that's humble, ready, and that's hungry.
You know, that takes me back to when I was going to college. Right, we had a Christian fellowship group, and we put together a worship night. And one of these girls that was a part of the group wanted to sing. And, everybody was up for it. When she went to go sing, she was not the best singer. She really wasn't. And
Dang.
I admire that. And I admire it because regardless of that, she went up there and she sang her heart out. And it was so beautiful.
Wow.
So beautiful. And that's like a core memory for me. To see somebody worship, and it's not perfect, but she did it with her whole heart.
Yeah, and people feel that, like they're like, because it gets to that point where it's like, wow, like God is really just manifesting Himself through the imperfection, of like because we boxed Him in this way of like, God's only gonna come down and manifest His Spirit if you hit the right key, if you do this. But if you say it out loud, it's like, it sounds silly, right? It's all like, yo, Joel, if you don't hit the right chord, God's not gonna come down. Like, sorry, and it's all like, yeah, that's not like that. We have it so twisted in our heads. Right. So yeah, if you're joining the worship team, allow for imperfection. It's not about yourself. It's just, just be genuine. Just do it because you truly want to worship God, not because you want to be seen by man.
All right, so the next question is, what do you say to a person that says, I can sing, but I'm not worthy enough?
Oh, I could definitely relate to that. Definitely. I think something that I heard of a preacher said that as young people, we don't understand what it is to be forgiven by God, especially when we're young, because we have this mentality that, okay, I sin, let me go pray and say sorry, but then the next day I'm gonna do it again, and it becomes to a point where it's just living the same repetitive life, and we just don't understand when God tells us you were forgiven. Like, all of that was thrown down to like the deep of the ocean and forgotten. Like, Jesus is not gonna bring it back like what the devil does, that he always going to bring it back to you. And I think, talking about worthy, I kind of could say that I was one of those where I remember starting, I was like, God, am I really worthy of doing this? Because this was when I was in high school, that's when my dad started the church. I'll be honest, I was doing some stuff that I should have not done at all. And when I would, on Sunday when I go to church and I was singing, I was like, God, am I really worthy? Like, am I really pleasing you by this? And there was moments where God would manifest Himself, and I would break down, and I would tell God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So to whoever feels like that, you are worthy. Like, you are loved by God. One song that I love so much is Reckless Love, because it talks about how God, like, you're not calling God crazy, but it's just the way He loves you. You don't even know how to understand it.
Love.
It's crazy.
You're like, how could you love me after I've messed up? After I told you, God, like, I will never do this again. Exactly. And then it's like, here you are. And
again. It's like, I can relate it to the Bible story where the pastor, he went out to find that one lost sheep, and he went everywhere and I always say this, out of maybe 99 sheep that maybe were right, they were just as that, they were correct, that one sheep was so important for him to go find. And even though that one little sheep maybe felt that he wasn't worthy, that he wasn't part of the pack, or maybe he just wasn't part of that sheep family that they were in together.
The sheep family.
It's like the little, like, fluffy. The pastor went, and when he went and found him, he went to go tell his friends, hey, he was lost and he was found. Yeah. And I think that's why I could say that we're worthy. Like, you're worthy. You're special in God's eyes. Yeah. And just know that you're that precious gift that God put in your mother's womb.
Yeah.
And look at you now, where you at. I think that's very important. That's very important.
When I think about it, it's just the mere fact, for example, if you're here today and you've been listening to us this far, there's something that has sparked in you for you to even continue listening. And we're hoping that God is talking to you. But if you're feeling unworthy, just know that God sent His Son for you, before you were even here.
That's right.
And that is just one proof enough for you to know how much He loves you, just so much. And a lot of times when it comes to feeling unworthy, let's say you decided to fix your life and now you're on this path that you might still be struggling, but you're like, no, I know I want God. I know I want God. A lot of times we think about our past, but it's not that God hasn't forgiven us. It's that you haven't forgiven yourself. You know, and I think it's just so important to remember that you are worthy, you are loved, you are God's precious child. And if this is something that, yeah, no, I heard that. If this is something that God has awakened in you to join the worship team, you know, I encourage you to one, put it in prayer, to examine yourself, to see if you're ready to take on the role, because it's not a joke. It's not a performance. It's something so beautiful and so intimate with God. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have to add, or we can go to the next one.
I don't have anything.
Oh, I do, but it's.
No. She wants to add.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just try to, like, sorry.
I was just hesitating because I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna say the complete opposite of what everybody just said.
She's like, you are not worthy.
You are not worthy. I'm serious.
Oh, well, yeah.
None of us are worthy.
Yeah.
It's only that's why I was like, yeah, she got it.
Yeah,
The blood of Christ that makes us worthy. Honestly, nobody, from the preacher to the usher to the worship team person, nobody is worthy.
Yeah.
It's only Jesus that makes us worthy. And I think when you're so focused on, oh, I'm not good enough, that's a very self-centered way of thinking. And you're so focused on how insufficient you are. And I would just say shift your focus to how sufficient God is. Because even on your worst day, with all your flaws and all your imperfections, you know, he's still worthy of all the praise. We don't worship God because of who we are, but because of who he is. So, you know, try to get over yourself a little bit. It's not about you.
It's not about you, boo-boo. Like, no, but, and, you know, in the midst of that imperfection, like, God, that's why I was saying, like, it's just so crazy how much God loves you, that God is willing to use someone imperfect to still reach out to the lost soul. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
anybody.
just anybody, any moment. God will sometimes even use someone who isn't Christian to speak to you because
Not
you
for
needed to
nothing,
hear.
I actually had an experience like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went down to Florida, and I was at a suite 16, and a family member of mine came up to me, and in that moment, I was very, like, in my head, and I'm like, you know, like, maybe I should just go have a drink, and maybe I should just go and just dance to these secular songs and just, like, ignore everything else, you know, let me just get away, you know. And it's crazy because this person was drunk, and they came to me and they sat down next to me, and they're like, God told me to tell you to stop worrying about the secular things, that you need to stay focused.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Jeez.
how the heck did he know?
Yeah. And you didn't know this
it was-
person.
No, I do know
Oh,
this
you do
person.
know this person.
Yes. And it's crazy because it's like I just randomly started thinking about these things, about these secular things. And then he told me that was the start of the conversation.
Wow.
And then he goes, you're going to be the one, you're the chosen one in your family, you know, in both sides of your family. And through you, everybody's going to be healed. Like, your family is going to be healed.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. And I started crying.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Because crying in the club. I'm sorry.
I know.
That's what I visualize, like lights.
Like the disco lights, and he's just having a moment with God.
Sorry.
People like, no, but that's crazy. Yeah, because you're basically from your family side. You're like are you the only one that's like in church right now?
I'm not. No, I have other family members who are in church.
Got it.
But I know, like, a lot of us are going through things.
Yeah, which it does happen, you know. But man, God has chosen you to be the light in that darkness.
Yeah,
you know, and it's a word that you need to hear from someone who was drunk.
Yeah,
you know, which you were like
wow. God takes the unexpected,
mm-hmm.
and he shocks you. He surprises you.
Yes. I remember I was having a conversation with someone and I was talking about like, you know, just like future things and like kids and how sometimes I like, you know, like worry about like, okay, like, you know, my life has to land up like this and I have to make sure I do A, B, and C for this to happen, you know, like all of this, right? And we try to plan so much of our lives. And then I'm like, like sometimes it stresses me out and whatever. And then this person, who isn't, they're not really Christian. They were like, yeah, but you have God with you. And I was just like what? Like that was the last thing I was expecting to hear from them. They were like you're covered, like you're good. I don't know why you're worrying so much. And I'm just all like, wow, like I needed to hear that from someone else for me to like as a reminder of like God's got you, you know, something so simple, but it was like a shocker because it's like the last thing that I would expect from this person. And I'm just all like, wow, you are so far from God and you needed like validation almost from this person just to remind you of God's blessings in your life, you know? So
Right.
it's, yeah, God will use anyone, any situation, and it's just insane. And at the end, it's just God's love for you trying to reach out to you. So,
Amen.
yeah.
I'm here just listening to you guys like that, yo.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah. Aming.
All right, and so for the final question, it says, what would you tell a person that believes they can only feel God's spirit when a specific worship member sings? For example, Betsy doesn't sing today, so I won't feel the spirit.
Dang. I mean,
Just say, get over yourself.
It's not about you.
it's not about
not
you,
about
boo
you.
boo. Like,
I don't know if like Xavier or Adrian like read my mind because literally I can relate to all these questions. Like it's
Yeah.
insane. Cause I was because literally that's how I would think.
Yeah.
I would literally
My younger self would think that way too.
yeah, like I would tell myself like when we were in church, I would always say, oh, like this person's singing today, I'm definitely gonna feel the spirit.
Yes.
And then next week the other the person would come and I'm like,
They can't
let's
really
see,
sing.
let's see what they
like,
do.
Yeah.
But there was moments in where like I'm like, oh snap, like I didn't expect this to happen, but this happened.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, like that's what Melissa said. Sometimes that's like so like into you,
You're
like
so into
yourself
yourself
that you
and-
forget that it's not about you. It's mostly about God at that point. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who's singing. And I like the perfect example that EJ brought, that the girl went up and maybe she didn't have the best voice or she didn't sing well, but she still did it out of heart
Yeah.
because she knew that at the end of the day, she didn't need validation of nobody in that church. She didn't need validation. I'm gonna even say it like this. She didn't need validation from mom or dad.
Yeah.
She just wanted that validation of God and hear God and say, you know what? I saw your heart. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to give you this gift.
Not for nothing. During that, like, getting that whole worship team, worship night together, she was, like, the first one to just step up, too.
Wow.
Which was like, oh, I'll sing. And I'm like, she sings.
You were like, are you
like,
sure?
everybody, like, nobody knew, like, she could sing or not. Like,
Yeah.
it was like, okay. And she went and she did her thing. And it was beautiful.
Wow.
I wish you guys were there. It was awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had that mentality before because one, like I grew up in church. So growing up in church, you just get the whole like religious side of thing versus like the relationship part. And it takes a while. It takes spiritual maturity for you to distinguish like what is a normal, what is like just things that you are making it in your head as a rule. So for me, it was all like, well, if this person could sing really well and they're like yelling really loud and they're, you know, for example, with a preacher, even if they're like, fuego, like in a nombre de Jesus, like, you know, I'm here like, yeah, that person's got the spirit. And now it's like, wow, I can't believe I ever thought this way, you know, like it is not this way. And the same thing, you know, growing up was like for singers, it's all like, oh yeah, this person goes in deep. Oh, I just like spit. But I would be like, yo, this person just like goes in so deep into worship. They say all the right things and all of that. They sound so good. Like I feel God's spirit. And I'm just like, you know, I think about it and I'm like, wow, that was so silly because all of it is really it's just we approach it with such a weird like
Emotions.
yeah, like it's like
Yeah.
we go based off of so many emotions versus like what it actually is. So when I hear that of like, oh, if Melissa's singing, we good today. If Adrian's singing, nah, like I'm just gonna come next service. Like,
Whoa.
imagine.
Don't say that.
No.
I've actually heard people say things like that. Well, not about you, but like,
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
People go around to be like, yo, who's singing today?
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
they
crazy.
do. Yeah, and I think someone with that mentality
Yeah.
does not fully understand worship, and they're coming from a place of what can I get versus what can I give. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they fully understood what worship is, and
This is the participation of
And-
everyone, you know?
and it's so powerful. You know, when you worship is so many things. It's
Yeah.
gratitude. It's
Yes.
remembering who God is and his promises. It's declaring God's word. It's prophesying. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? People are
It's
healed. People
so
are set
much.
free. There's so much that goes on. And so I would tell that person,
Oh, she had her eyebrows raised.
why do you worship God, and why are you here? You know what I mean? Like give yourself to that worship. Don't ask for anything. You know, because there is a time and a place where you're going through something, and you do pray like, God, please help me in this situation, like, you know, and that's okay, but that shouldn't be your mentality every single time.
your approach
You know
of
what
like
I
worship,
mean?
like I'm gonna go to church to see what I can receive.
Yeah.
Like, what about what you can give to God?
That's right.
You know,
Yes.
because at the end of the day, like, okay, yes, it is the people who are leading and worshiping that day. They're here to help animar. How do you say that? To help
Motivate or
like motivate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like to help motivate others into worship. But at the end of the day, it's everyone in
Yeah.
there, members and worship team, their responsibility to provoke, you know, and to be able to worship in gratitude all together. I'm not going to say that like, I just think about it in this way. It's all like, okay, if Melissa's not singing, I'm not going to give thanks to God because I don't feel like giving thanks to God unless it's only her singing. Like, you know, like when you think about it in that way, it's all
And
like,
then you
gotta-
have a conditional worship.
yes,
Your
and it's
love
all
and your
like-
devotion to God, like it's based on condition.
Yeah, is
Yeah.
it worship or are you
Yeah.
worshiping this person now? And
Right.
and the way they sound and the way they're going, like what's your intent here?
Or like-
Also, you also miss out on what God is bringing.
Oh
that
my
day.
Right,
God.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Or like for like example, like sometimes like I used to have this mentality too. Like let's say like for example, like let's say like if a worshiper or like a preacher, I just said perfect example, he'll come and he'll pray for that person and you'll be like, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
I want that right now. And you will tell yourself, God, I want you to talk to me. I want you to talk to me. Please talk to me. If you don't talk to me, I don't know. Like, you get me? Like, so it's like,
Like
we're
if you
so
love me, they're gonna come
exactly.
to me.
And this is where I learned that I have to stop because like you're so focused on you and not your relationship with
Yeah.
God that you start to act now like if I didn't receive nothing that day, is that because God didn't speak to me or because God wasn't there or maybe the preacher or the singer just wasn't doing it right today.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's yourself and you're like and that's crazy because I reacted like that one time. I remember a pastor came. We know him and he preached and everybody received except me and I'm like oh my God.
Why is
I was
everyone?
praying.
Yeah.
I was praying like what happened. And what I love about that is that when you least expect it without you even asking, that's when it happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. But jumping on that, it's like so much, and especially young people, so many young people have that expectation of going to church because this preacher came, I'm going to receive tonight because that preacher or that singer came, and it shouldn't be like that.
No,
It
it's
should
not.
never be like that because at the end of the day, you're making that relationship with God about yourself and
Yeah.
about what you want to feel, and as you said, about that emotion that you want,
Yeah.
and now making it as like, God, you know what, I want to seek you more, I want to find you more, I'm gonna pray you more, I'm gonna worship you more.
I mean, if you
Sometimes-
everything. Sorry, no, keep going.
So sometimes, I had a thought. I was gonna say sometimes people make it very technical too, which is also about themselves. It's like, oh, they didn't say it specifically like this, how I went through it, so
Yeah.
it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because you're stuck in your way.
Mhm.
You know, you're stuck in what you want and not what God wants.
So like what you guys have just been saying for me, like I just keep seeing and like hearing it, like it's just selfishness. That's all it is, you know, because, you know, so many people come with this mentality of like, what can I receive? What can I receive? Like I understand sometimes we do need our cups filled, right? And we're like, yo, we're just so weak. We need that help. And that is the whole point of like the church community, right? Because we're all here to help each other out, uplift each other. But it's like it can't always be about like, what can I receive? What can I receive? What can you give? You know, all these years of like receiving, all this time of receiving, like it's time to give. And also like just in general, like I think about it like our Father's here, right? And he's looking down on us. And if all our prayers are just based off of requests, it's like, wow, like when will you break that? Like, I'm trying to get my words together. I can't think of it, but it's like, when is that point going to come where you're finally going to give, when you're finally just going to seek God for genuineness?
Yeah.
Love, for genuine love. Right. Like there was that one preaching that was like 2 weeks ago where that guest preacher came and he was talking about like, you know, so now I seek God not because I'm trying to go to hell, but because I truly love him, because I don't want to disappoint God.
That's right.
You know, and it's just such a beautiful moment when you go from receiving to like, no, I want to give now, you know. And I think that's just so important, that to change your heart condition, right? Of like, I'm just here to receive, to like, God, like I want to truly thank you, like truly I want to thank you for everything you've done. And yeah, just changing your perspective on that, right? Because it's not always going to be the person singing, and it's not always going to be your favorite singer, and it is going to come to a point where someone might like crack their voice a little bit, but guess what? God will still use that person.
Amen.
You know?
For sure.
Yeah. So if y'all hear my voice crack, no, I'm kidding. I actually had something that like me and EJ were talking about the other day, and I kind of wanted to get your perspective. Is like, what do you guys think of, you know, how we were saying earlier, how like there's all these like, you know, Christian bands, and like now it's starting to become more of a cool thing versus of like, you know, like how much could we blend into the world versus like standing out. So for example, like we know this whole thing with like, I'm just gonna like use names, but like the whole like Maverick City ex Beyonce thing. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I don't know if you got to hear anything about it, but
I saw that on TikTok, and I was reading the comments. Most of the time I go to comments. Some of them were saying that
I'm a comment person too. I'm
Me
here
too.
like, ooh.
Some people were saying that it's not true, that it was just like a remix that somebody did.
Right.
And then other people were saying that it is true.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not here to bash.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But
also
I feel like Maverick and itself, I feel like they have really sort of kind of distanced themselves just a little.
Yeah.
And I think the fame has got to them.
Yeah.
And not even that, it's just because when I look at the Grammy performance,
yeah.
Because I mean, as I'm gonna say this, who am I to judge? But there's certain ways where you could have maybe dressed a little appropriate or better.
I didn't even get to see any
like
of like
Brandon Lake had like a black type of tank top.
It's like a little vest.
Like a vest.
Like all his
And yes,
a little Backstreet Boy and
and
thing.
then Naomi so like, it's like, that's why I said I'm not here to bash, but like I just feel like the fame has gone so high that at that point,
I mean, it happened quickly too.
So quick that I feel like that at this point given, it's like, well, we're just making music because we're gonna make music.
Yeah,
it's not that.
I think that their focus has changed up a little bit.
Like there's not that intimacy like before that. They would like invite like special guests, and they would have like my favorite album was Fill This Room, I think it is.
Oh my God, yes.
And I love that album. And then the one they did with Elevation Worship, and then from beyond there,
something started changing a little bit.
Something started changing. That's why I say like the fame really got to them. But hey, you never know if God could turn around their heads or something. But I
mean, I think like this is a perfect example of like, be careful for you that think that you're firm, you know. For me, I just feel like it was a little bit of a shocker. I know it wasn't them that collaborated with Beyonce, but they accepted the collaboration that is allowed to be on their page. And I just feel like the whole blending in too much.
Yeah.
You know, when is a point that we're gonna stand out and separate? Because, you know, at this point it's not looking like that. And it worries me, right? Because listen, I love Maverick City, and I still remember like a couple years ago where we went to them.
Yeah.
Me and Melissa and Mo, we went to a Maverick City concert before all of this.
Right before 2020.
Like right
like
before
March.
2020.
March.
I think it was like in Queens or Brooklyn.
It's Queens, yeah.
It was a free concert
Oh,
in
wow.
a church. And we were like, yo, let's go listen. And we were like, yeah. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I never heard of them. I'm like, but this is fire. You know, it was so good. Before they like, it was like right before they blew up. And I had never heard of them. I think she already knew and Mo already knew. And then I'm just all like, wow, like they're so good. And still, like, I think God has used them so much. But for me, it's more of like the stay vigilant, you know, like be careful, like who you decide to admire or to all of this, because like, you know, at the end of the day, they're people,
Yeah.
you know?
I think it's also a cultural thing in our church, in this country specifically.
Yeah.
I think a lot of churches or worship teams or worship groups, they're trying to reach people, you know, and they're trying to be more tolerant of certain things. And I think that there's a danger, because then you're like,
You're
how much
playing with
can
the
I get
line.
away with before it's sin? And you're
Yes.
playing with fire,
Yeah.
you know, and that's when these things happen, when you see people in the church looking more like the world,
Yeah.
you know. So you really have to be careful of that. I'm not saying that God doesn't use them, but you really have to be careful how you're walking. You know what I mean? And you can't, you know, you can want to win over people, but not to the point where you're sacrificing your convictions and when you're looking like the world, and there's no distinction
Yeah.
between, you know what I mean? Because at that point, you lost them. There's this meme I saw the other day. It was not a meme. It's sort of like a quote that I saw on Instagram, where it's like, Jesus ate with sinners, but he didn't become a sinner.
Yeah.
He won them over.
He
So
didn't participate with
Yeah.
them.
He didn't have to do the things that they did to win them over. And I think
Yes.
that's where we're having like this
This struggle.
this
like
struggle with our churches and with our worship teams, because we're like, oh no, it's to win them over, but in the process you're getting lost.
You're
like, what's the point?
losing. Yeah. Oof.
To be honest, I don't like it. I don't like the whole collaboration thing. I feel like it's a huge.
Well, that's the thing.
step
It
towards
wasn't a
fame.
collaboration.
Oh, was it?
It was a random person
The remix.
Oh,
that
okay,
remixed
okay.
it. But the problem was that, so, okay, it's like, let's say I took this song and this song, I put it together, and I tagged Maverick City.
Yeah.
got
And
it.
but they decided to accept it, and by accepting it, now it goes into their page.
Okay, I see.
So it's like they didn't do it, but by accepting it, you're also showing like that this is okay.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So, and I'll try to speak up so that way a lot of people can hear it too. I just feel like Maverick City, although they're not, because they made a comment, and I'll read it in a second, but although they don't, you know, support false doctrines and stuff like that, and yes, they're a Christian band, I do believe that, let me not say I do believe, I feel like Maverick City is leaving themselves with the opportunity to do so in the future. Because when we went to the Grammys, they chose songs specifically that were, you know, decent, but they could have done better to preach the gospel through gospel.
Yeah.
When they were on The View, same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and then with this whole collaboration, they made a comment that it kind of doesn't sit with me well, right? So it talks about how the comment should be filled with prayer for this person, but then it goes on into saying, we do not support or preach false doctrine, and we are not currently collaborating with Beyonce. I just feel like if you were never going to get there,
You could just say like we are not.
we are not, and we will never.
Yeah.
Why are we leaving ourselves with the option to? Because I feel like the word currently can be, you know, kind of like
Yeah.
played loosely with you,
Yeah,
right?
like
Currently.
It could
possibly
happen.
It could happen, but it's
Yeah.
currently not happening.
Well,
Why
you
not
know.
just say it's not happening? We don't support this collaboration, but this is just an edit. Why not just explain that? But
Yeah.
no, they chose to say the word current.
Well, I think also that in general, there are a lot of people, Christians, and that's what I'm mainly talking about, people that are scared to speak truth in because they'll receive the consequence of all
Canceled.
this backlash. Yeah, you
Yeah.
get canceled. They're like, how dare they canceling Queen Bee? Like, like all of this, like they're saying, yeah, and people are so scared of preaching the truth and just saying like this was wrong, and in hopes that they're not going to offend anyone. But at the end of the day, we're not here to blend in with the world.
Right. And that's kind of like where I was going with it.
Yeah.
I just feel like Maverick City is losing so many opportunities to show that they are different from this world. They're losing so many opportunities to actually preach the gospel with their gift that they have to sing the gospel.
Yeah.
And they've reached so much momentum, but yet to do nothing with it is just, I don't know. That's where I feel like that, like you were saying, Joel, where the fame might be getting to them a little too much now.
Yeah.
And they're trying to stay in the safe. They're trying to stay afloat with Christianity, but, they don't want to close out any other opportunity.
Yeah. And it's sad, because I love their music.
I do too, yeah.
And I think it has touched me many times before. And I'm just all like, wow, they are like on fire, And I just pray that they have an awakening or revelation, of something where it's all like, hey, we need to learn to start not blending in, but to start shining out, to being that light in that darkness. And I think that it's a hard balance, when you try to like kind of get there, but not fully, because then it gets to the point where you just start looking like them.
For sure.
But yeah, so that is basically, I just wanted to like kind of, because that's something that like recently happened, and I'm like, I wonder how other people are looking at it. Am I just the only one that's like thinking like, yeah, this don't sit well, or something's going on here and I'm not, but yeah, I just, again, I just want to say like, thank you guys so much for being here. This episode probably went on for like a lot longer, but I feel like that always happens every time we decide to like bring someone, because we get so into like whatever we're talking about. But guys, it was like truly an honor, a pleasure to have you guys each. Thank you so much.
All for the glory of God.
All for the glory of God. No,
Good
seriously.
job.
It's funny, like sidetrack, but like every time I have said like Joel, like, yo, Joel, you did so good. He's like, all for the glory of God. It's such a, when you said that, I was like, you do always say that, which is true. But like, like, I'm like, wow, amen. But guys, thank you guys so much for watching this video, for watching this episode. I know it was a long one, but as always, like, we would love to hear your feedback, anything that, any just comments, opinions, suggestions, all that good stuff. Again, if you're new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Instagram. We are at 7Sixteen with 2 N's, I think, right? Yeah, I didn't forget that one. And thank you guys again so much, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
All right.
You heard my stomach growling? It's like,
No.
it's
I
like,
can finally breathe.
Hey, we got more choppa there.
hasta
Yeah,
aquí
we
mi
do.
parte. I wanted to say that so bad.
Hasta aquí mi
Yo, I
parte.
can finally breathe. Like, I literally was stuck in my stomach the whole
How
time.
many times I had to burp?
Yo, I burped. I think I was just like, I was like,
I'm like, oh no.
that was good.
Hey, Misa, you can cut it from this point on.
Oh.
Leave the burping and everything inside.
Oh, yeah,
Hi,
yeah.
Misa.